Throughout time, people have sought to seek perfection through harmony, proportions, symmetry, and balance. And on the face of it, perfection may seem like the best path to success. But in this video, I'm going to explain why it's probably an advantage to let go of the pursuit of perfection and to find ways to be excellent without being this ideal. Michelangelo was working intensely on a sculpture, Florentine Pieta. The sculpture that many historians regard as one of his most thought-provoking work. He put an enormous amount of personal effort and energy to make it the perfect sculpture, until one day he took a sledgehammer to it. Why would he break one of the greatest works that was born after a decade of brutal labour and effort? Well, Michelangelo was a perfectionist, and he was angered by the flaws in the marble. A prime example of irrational behaviour. To him, smashing apart his own masterpiece made total sense. This was a solitary struggle that only he could understand. While perfectionism has always existed, never before have we seen it manifest itself so strongly. The sense of pressure to demonstrate value, to outperform, intertwines with almost every aspect of our lives. We are rated and liked on so many aspects. This goes to show how our way of thinking can be skewed into thinking that we are literally valued to the extent of our accomplishments and our achievements, which often correlate directly to our ability to pay rent or put food on the table. And perfectionists tend to have these excessively high performance standards of just doing things. They invest all their energy to ensure that their I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. However, many times this obsessive attention to detail that manifests from the now or never attitude takes up valuable reserves of time and energy. And this can lead to them to abandon projects midway, just like Michelangelo, and lose sight of the goals no matter what. Which in hindsight, it is a flaw, and to some extent we are all imperfect. And I must admit, there was a time where I would obsess over the best plan of action, and whenever I'd have a goal, I would spend hours looking at other people. How did they do it? And I'll try and look for this perfect formula, because in my head I had to get it exactly right. It was either looking for the best content tool for creation or the best time to take action, and this led me feeling to being quite anxious, and in doing so I just wasted a lot of time deliberating, as opposed to if I'd have just made a move I would have learnt from some of my actions. Essentially it was a trap that was holding me back. And it's this type of perfection that prevented me from gaining any type of momentum. And essentially, perfectionism is just an illusion that only gave me excuses to indirectly procrastinate and just put off things, whether it was telling myself that I don't have the right camera or I don't have that skill yet. There will always be something that you can point at as to why you haven't started yet. When we accept anything that is worth doing might be done badly at first, we can open ourselves up to many more possibilities. And to caveat, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with having standards. You should work hard. You should strive to achieve things that you want in your life. But I think perfectionism does come into categories. You've got the self-orientated type, who keep to strict standards for themselves, and they are motivated by avoiding failure at all costs. Then there's the other orientated type. They set perfectionist expectations for others. And then there's the socially prescribed, those who believe that others expect them to be perfect. While people can suffer from a mixture of all three, each type is enough to cause a high level of anxiety on its own. And when you can adapt to be flexible about your standards in responses to life changes versus someone who beats themselves up when they don't meet their own standards, it's the space where you can evolve. Perfectionists of all kinds use a type of all or none, black or white style of thinking. You're either a failure or a success. You won or you lost. You either did something right or wrong, when in reality life happens in the grey, areas between all of these things. And if a perfectionist can make the transformation and realise that people make mistakes, and life is almost like finding the answers within the chaos. Your progress is within your story, your experiences that hopefully make you a well-rounded individual. If you take this diamond for example, it can be lab grown. They can be technically perfect in every way, and it will cost you a fraction of the price. But real diamonds, ones that are dug from mines, still sell for much more, especially ones that have provenance. And this is the same thing when it comes to works of art and antiques. If it has a story, it sells for more. And I would say it's arguably what people are paying for. It's as much of the story that is attached to the actual antique or painting. It's the story that sells to the buyer. It's the story that sets the price. And the reality is, they don't want perfection. They want something that has survived the wrath of time, that has gone through things. And this is what holds weight. And the same applies for life also. Life is made up of imperfect moments. And as much as we want to follow this linear plan of progression that should go up in an upward line that's smooth, that's not going to be the case. It's easy to fall into the trap to spend more time on something thinking it's going to be more perfect. And I would fall prey to this, especially when it came to creative work. I would get stuck into the tiniest of details and I would overthink every single decision. But at a certain point, you have to do what we call in the business world an MVP, a minimum viable product, something of substance you can show. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, once said in a letter to his shareholders that the optimal decisions occur when one has around 70% of the necessary information. He went on to say that anything less than 70%, you're probably going to make a bad decision. But anything more than 70%, you're probably wasting your time on something that is unlikely to change the outcome. And this 70% rule can be applied to a lot of things in life. Sometimes it's best to have something than nothing that is hypothetically going to be perfect. And I encourage you to embrace and celebrate imperfections, as this is a normal part of life. It's these flaws in ourselves that we create that make us, our work, unique. Perfection doesn't need to be a result. Perfection could be a process of improvement, not the act of getting it right all the time. And it's the act of getting something out there, having that MVP, having something substantial, something you can hold, something you can show, having it put through its paces, having it tested, failing, improving on that, and maybe one day when it's all said and done, you can still strive for greatness.